ladies and gentlemen, everyone around and in between. This is DebateSensei Limited Preparation Edition, where we talk about things relevant to limited preparation, competitive debate at the college level. With me from San Diego State University is Tim Seavey.
And
I am Jared Kubicka-Miller. I am a professor of communications at Santiago Canyon College, debate coach, enthusiast. We've got a bunch of other series like this about different associations. You should go check them out. But today, on this one, we're going to be talking about the Oscars. We like doing like pop culture stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, limited prep debate fortunately kind of spans that. It's not as likely that you'll get an Oscars topic maybe in Parley, but IPDA has some open opportunity when you get 5 topics to strike from.
Right.
In IPDA, oftentimes you'll get a more pop culture one thrown in there. And those are fun to debate. Like some of the ones that I judged around that was is the Joker too dark? It was neat. It was like,
really?
It was like, is the Joker darker than the Dark Knight? And it was like, interesting. Okay. So like you had to know both movies a little bit and then like talking through what that means and stuff. And just like being able to pick apart film that was a little, accessible. Like a lot of people had seen both, but it was neat.
I also think that these topics actually probably are more useful overall in like your day-to-day life when you're just having conversations, right? Like if you're just mingling, you're just socializing, you're looking for conversation to fill that awkward silence with that new person that you just met, right? And talking about, nuclear posturing with China and whether or not we should.
I was just gonna say, and the Parley kid's like, hey, so how about those terraformed islands in the South China Sea? Yeah. What a crazy, geopolitical flex, right? It's
right.
Like, why are you saying words to me? But then meanwhile, you'd be like, Greta Gerwig. I almost wonder if like the whole Oscars thing is really just a ploy to make the Barbie point even further.
Right. And I make a point to seek out pop culture topics for my debate class because, I don't have international relations majors up and down, in my class. I got people that are all over the place. And so I find that they're a lot more accessible. People think that they are, they poo-poo the topics because they're like, oh, it doesn't have like the same sort of research rigor that you would have with other things. I'm like, that's not always true. You just have to, you got to reconceptualize what you consider to be evidence. So like Vanity Fair and Vogue now become, like very credible sources of information for these things. They're great. They predict really well. I don't know how they have inside information, but if you want to know who's likely to win, it's like you look up those two and cross-reference them and they're great.
I wonder actually, I bet someone out there has a recording of stats of like, here are the various publications and here's their, accuracy rate. Like here's how.
Oh yeah. I wanted to do that, but then I'm like, that's just too much. That's just too much.
How deep do you want to go with your research?
Yeah. Yeah. See, like people like that's rigorous. That is some rigor right there. And I'm like, I just can't do it. And so like, that's on the same level as some other type of research that you might do. So I try to make a point, me and my wife, this is like a thing that we do. It's a great way to sort of like carve out time with each other. We try to see everything that's nominated. And it's
no joke.
It's a journey. It is. It's fun. We love it. It's like, and we don't always love what we're watching, honestly. And the things that get nominated, I'll tell you this, overall, oh man, they are heavy. Like a lot of them. Oh,
you gotta love like dark stuff.
Oh God, yeah, because that's what gets nominated. That's what gets nominated, right? The big nominee, like the front runner this year is Oppenheimer, and that's just a slog. Oh my God, you are like, it's like a 3-hour movie, and it's just heavy, and it's just about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dying in a very short amount of time, and just like oh my God. It's I'm not spoiling anything. Everyone should know about what it's about. But it's like So it is a challenge. We have some issues with it. Like for instance, the feature. So the short documentaries usually are available easy on streaming. Okay. The feature documentaries you can see some of them on streaming, but there's usually 2 or 3 of them where you actually have to like drive to Hollywood or Santa Monica or something like that, and it's only playing in one theater out there.
Wow.
You'll see it. Yeah.
You
So
can't like.
date night.
I'm almost thinking like the one remaining Blockbuster or something that's open, like
Oh,
they carry documentaries, like some like shady like rental service that'll like ship you a disc.
I mean, like we have friends who are SAG members, and so when they get the SAG-AFTRA nominations, a lot of them line up with the Oscars, but not all of them, and so sometimes we get a little inside route on that one. But those are hard, and then some of them are just straight up impossible to watch, like the short animated films.
Okay.
Maybe you could find 1 or 2 of them, but like they're just not released anywhere. Nowhere. Like they get released after the Oscars. And so I'm like, what's the point? Like, I mean, like it seems like it's just about the Academy, you know? So
I imagine maybe some of the feature international films might be a little bit tricky too.
They sometimes, but like feature length films, I think so much goes into them that they're more likely to be released. I think like the 10 to 15 minute animated films you could probably do with a team of 3 or 4 people, and then they don't have whatever sort of marketing team you need in order to get the release going. So I mean, I'm just kind of assuming, but it makes it really, really hard to form your own opinion about what you think should win.
And now, how like diligent do you get about this? Is it like, if we get like 80%, that's good? Or do you guys like really, really strive to get 100%? Because there's some things like there's one movie in here that got like a hair and makeup award or a hair and makeup nomination and no other nominations, but it's technically on the list.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what I do, so I guess this is sort of involved. I put all of them on a spreadsheet. Okay. And you know what? I will even show you the spreadsheet because I have it open right here. Take a look.
All right.
Yeah. You get a little inside information. All right. So this is how I do it. I get a spreadsheet here. And so
wow, look at that.
So these are all the nominations. Oppenheimer is at the top. Those are all of the categories in the header, right? The yellow is highlighted as what I've seen so far. Me and my wife have seen together.
Wow.
All right. I put little notes about what Variety is picked as the favorite.
Oh, so you've already like flagged them. Okay.
Yeah. So those little flags are the favorites.
Nice.
Out of all of them. And so what that does is it makes it so that I can prioritize which movies to watch. Because if I watch one movie, like the next thing I watch, Poor Things, will knock out 11 of those categories, right? And then Anatomy of a Fall. So that's my priority viewing. But then you get down to like once you get down to Mission Impossible has 2, right? But then everything else has 1. Yeah.
Look at that. You've even like sorted it. Now, okay, do you give yourself any different, like, is there a weight to if you see it in theaters versus seeing it in person? Like, I saw Oppenheimer in IMAX, and it was like the 35 millimeter IMAX, and it was really cool. Wow. And I don't know that experience would be the same if I watched that at home.
It's not so much about that. Like sometimes, like before the nominations come out, we're looking at the predictions, and we're watching the ones that are most likely. So we saw Oppenheimer and Barbie a long time ago. Right. In the theaters.
Did you do the back-to-back? Did you do the double feature?
The Barbieheimer?
Barbieheimer?
No, didn't do that. It was 2 different days. I don't know if I would be able to do that, but I love those memes that were coming out about it.
Oh yeah.
People come in, in black clothes, and then they get dressed up in pink clothes and leave again. So anyways, let's focus on debate and not so much my marriage.
I'm very impressed with that entire structure though. So so it's not the case like you're like dead set on like got 100% this entire thing, but like getting through far and away the big ones, and that's still a deep list, like getting all the documentaries and things in there.
Yeah. So and we save the animated features to watch with the kids. You know what I mean? They like watching those. So as a family, we're watching those, and so those ones we're holding off on.
Spider-Man was awesome. It was so good.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the animated feature films.
Correct.
That one is favored to win.
Yeah, I would pick that one too. And I have not seen Elemental, but I feel like it's just like because Disney and Pixar have like a reserved spot for them each year that they release something. But I've heard so many people say that it was garbage.
I think it's also because there's not a whole hell of a lot of animated feature films that come out. I think
that's very true.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get more into like the debate of the Oscars. All right. Sure. And rather than just like gushing over which movies that we like.
Fair.
Okay. So I think the first thing I would like to talk about is let's kind of revisit the Oscars so white hashtag. I feel like one of the questions is that still apply?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For this year's nominations, do they fit the Oscars so white, or do they step away from Oscars so white?
I would say fit, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look at the top, like the best pictures. American Fiction is the only one if I'm looking at that has a primarily black cast.
I did not see Past Lives. I don't know that one.
Past Lives. Oh, Past Lives is Korean, primarily cast. So, and that's very nice. It's like understated. It's it's a really good movie. But some things like I think some snubs would add to your case about Oscars so white. Like what is it? The Color Purple was expecting a few additional nominations in like supporting actress and maybe and some songs. I think like they had. I don't know if they had original songs though, but best song. Okay. I forget somehow some of the categories about like the requirements, because I think it might be best original song, and it's been a musical for a long time. I wonder if that takes it out of
some of the runnings. Yeah.
Yeah. So
would that count as an adapted screenplay
though? Maybe. Man, you know what? So the adapted screenplay is also. Let's get into that a little bit, but let's focus a little bit on the Oscars so white for a bit. But I got something on that one. It's actually a pretty interesting little a conversation. But I think I think you can. There's plenty of arguments to be made about Oscars so white, especially like the Color Purple, and I think the leading actor on American Fiction, I don't think was nominated. Was he nominated?
Sterling K. Brown got it. Yeah,
he did. He was. Okay. On the other hand, though, if you're looking at like best category, you have Coleman Domingo from Rustin, which, by the way, he just does a fantastic job. It is like it's like the hidden history of MLK's I Have a Dream March on Washington speech. You know what I mean? It's like, and so how important Rustin was to organizing it. He was just absolutely critical. Just it would not have happened without him. But so having Jeffrey Wright and Coleman Domingo so a lot of the actors are being recognized, but not necessarily the movies, and that's an interesting dynamic to talk when you're talking about Oscars so white. You know what I mean? It's like we're not seeing too many directors. We're not seeing too many like the best picture nominations that are featuring those particular stories. In there. All right.
Yeah, I think there. To your point, like there are a number of like just the individual actors. So like you're propping up people of color, but it's really not so much like anything besides that.
Yeah.
So there's probably even more argument to be made there of like, okay, what of the artistry that's not just performance.
Yeah. So in terms of screenplay, the discussion there is that I think Barbie was not nominated. Hold on, let me see here. Is not nominated for original screenplay because it was classified as an Oh no, it was
It isn't adapted.
Yeah, it was nominated for adapted, but the argument was that it should be for original. And so I started looking up. I'm like, okay, what the hell's the difference between adapted screenplay and original screenplay? And so adapted screenplays are based on things that already have like a story, like a book, a novel, or characters. And so they're saying
characters. Okay.
Yeah, so Barbie is a character. But the thing is that there are some other, I don't know, I'm still confused because I'm looking at some of the original screenplay. Wait, where is it? Screenplay. Here we go. Like Maestro is about Leonard Bernstein. It's like, and his life, you know, like.
So he's like biopics don't count. But what if someone wrote a biography about him?
Yeah, I don't know. So I'll be honest with you. I'm a little. I think this shows that there isn't, you know, it's not black and white when it comes to categorizing these things.
Right? The Oscars are good at that.
Yeah. So like, yeah,
it feels a little bit like holding in football. It's like, well, we'll make the call if it feels right, but if it's about to balance things out, then we'll just, you know, that gray area flexibility allows for them to like maybe more evenly like pair things of like, oh well, looks like this category's got a lot of, you know, strong contenders. Let's move this elsewhere. But I'm sure there's also a lot of, you know, what some that care a lot about this would consider like corruption, like the Academy behind the scenes, kind of pulling the strings to like what does and doesn't get, you know, placed, and if so, where does it land? Because it doesn't seem like there is a very clear bright line on like what fits into either category. But I also think it allowed, because it is a non-transparent process, like it's a closed doors process to come up with many of these things, then voting is like anonymous as well. It seems like that anonymity allows for, you know, whatever you know, shadiness to be like, oh well, it's just how the Academy works. Like to keep it a black box means that it cannot be you know, inspected and you know, even attempted to improve. Like it has to just be a number of Oscars where, you know, that hashtag gets really big, that eventually there's enough pressure that the Academy is like, well, okay, this year now we'll do something about it. But still, you know, there's not a path or something.
I think that's an interesting debate because it kind of walks the line between fact and policy. Normally we see walking lines between value and policy, but how to categorize things is like categorical claims are fact claims, you know, or debates of fact, questions of fact. And so that's like one of the few examples where a fact debate, I'm like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
You know, I think it's easy to then also become really, you know, just skeptical from the outset. I loved when Joaquin Phoenix won Best Actor for Joker, and his acceptance speech was like, we all know that this is a farce. There's not a competition between any of us. We are all like phenomenal at what we do, and just like called out many of the other actors that were nominated. Like, I am not a better actor than you for this, and you're not better than me. We're doing this to sell advertisement. Like, yeah. And then they start rolling the music real loud. Like, I really appreciate that it wasn't like, you know, oh my God, thank you, the Academy. Thank you. Oh, this is the greatest film ever. He's like, I appreciate winning this thing, but it's not a competition. And like, you know, let's call this what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So speaking of which, let's talk snubs then. Let's go the opposite. Like, I think snubs are probably one of the most likely debate topics you'll get about the Oscars. And I think the one that everyone is talking about is Greta Gerwig.
Right.
For Barbie.
So that actually was there was a bunch of extemp topics about Barbie recently. Which, like, yeah, you can definitely talk about it. Like, extemp is one area that you sometimes also get a little bit of pop culture of like who's going to win the Super Bowl or whatever. So for those that have not seen Barbie, it's a very strong feminist message about the number of times that like and story narrative of like how you know, women are put into this very specific requirements, and the really like famous monologue I was reading up before that America Ferrera came up with, the always never of like, you always have to be grateful, but never forget the system's rigged, and back and forth and all these things. So wonderful that she got the nomination. But what everyone is screaming about is like this movie about how men get so much recognition and women don't. And then Ryan Gosling gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and Margot Robbie does not. And Greta Gerwig also does not get for director, but of course everything with Oppenheimer does. So it was almost like just ironic, slap in the face of like, here's a movie very specifically depicting, the over celebration of all these like male accomplishments. And then that's exactly what the nominations end up reflecting as well.
Okay. So like, I try to find like, if you're debating, right, and you have to define things, and if it's going to be straight up Greta Gerwig, Barbie, she should have been nominated for director. It's actually kind of difficult to find like what standards are used to determine who is best director, because it's really just a voting process.
Yeah, T on best for. Yeah. I mean, that's you can really go gnarly on it, especially with an organization that has a black box. There's not a rubric of what the Academy looks for.
Yeah. And so like, it's really common for like best director and best picture to be about the same movie, to come from the same movie. It's like, if you're looking at it right now, it seems like that's, let me take a look.
Every one of the best directing nominees are also nominated for best picture.
Right. And so, but since they have like 10 best picture nominated, well, not quite 10 this time, they have up to 10. Right. But only 5 for director, then like some of them are not going to get picked. And it looked like Barbie got it, got shafted this time. But Barbie got 8 nominations overall. So the question is like, is it, is the director category enough to prove that it was a snub? I mean, isn't it enough to have 8 nominations for this movie, including like, supporting actress,
So here's where I find there's like legitimacy to this, but I think there's also a degree of like, I don't know, beef that people have with it. The artistry, like if we were to rank order the most prestigious Oscars, like which of these awards are really the most impressive? Like cinematography, right? Like, very important, or like, art direction, but then you start getting further and further down, like sound mixing, and set design or something like that. And some of these awards don't even make it to television, right? Like they have a lot of awards, but the actual what we see, like the red carpet and everyone all dressed up, that happens later for only like the last 10 or 15 awards. So there definitely appears to be a hierarchy, even that the Academy sets, where Best Picture is absolutely the number one, and it feels like Best Actor, Best Actress, Director are kind of right there with it. Like those are the next in line. So sure, Barbie may win costume design, and that almost feels like perfectly on point. But that almost in itself feels like, well, we're reserving director for the high art, but costume design gets a nice little nod because look at you with your costumes. Like again, I'm projecting a lot of this personality and judgment upon how the Academy picks things. But if you do end up seeing Barbie win for costume design and yet not win for some of the more significant, like best actress, best director, that does feel like it's disrespected as a piece of art, like high art, the way that Oppenheimer is given everything. Yet it's still has, well, but you still got these other ones. That almost plays right also into the Barbie message.
Yeah.
Like still be grateful for all the other little things. You don't get the big important ones, but still be grateful because look, you already got 8. What do you want more than that?
Yeah, that's a pretty good message. Like, and I haven't seen all of the best director yet. Like, I got 3 more that I need to see, but already, like, I'm kind of going, I don't know if Scorsese needed the nomination over Greta Gerwig. Like, I'll be like, it's like Killers of Flower Moon is a great, solid movie. You know what I mean? It's like, it's about a horrible, important time in American history. It's an untold story that everyone should learn about, right? But like he does a masterful job at it as well. But so did Greta Gerwig. And then when you're looking at like sort of bigger picture stuff, when you step back and kind of go, what does it mean to nominate him and not her? If I was on the Academy, that would be weighing really heavy on me. I don't think I'd be making the same decision they did.
Yeah. I also have not seen Anatomy of a Fall or Zone of Interest. But yeah, I mean, you've got heavy hitters in there with Scorsese and Christopher Nolan. Like you end up with, it's like you get these kind of industry titans. Like John Williams will always have a nomination for score, right? Or like, Roger Deakins will always have a nomination for, art director or whatever. Like there's these just major names that are in particular places. Like if they produce a movie, like Disney, as we were just saying, will pretty much always have like a standing slot in animated feature. But yeah, like you said, like, does that person really need another nomination? Was that really like the best directing of the year? Not saying that it was bad necessarily, of course, but I'm with you on that of like, I think the value of the award might come into play because it's not necessarily fair to say like, oh, this is the best when again, there's not a published criteria. So then also comes how important is this award to this project? So we're not just giving it out to any old, production that needs it or that deserves it, but I don't know. I feel like there's got to be an element to that of like, oh, this movie had the right message and really, fit all these other criteria. Like there ought to be some additional, consideration.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the last things I'd like to talk about is a little bit more of a big picture thing. I think we might have overlooked the one fundamental question, but you kind of touched upon it with the Joaquin Phoenix story, which is one of the easiest topics to come up with about anything is just to declare something overrated.
Yeah.
All right. So like, are the Oscars overrated? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you can come up with an infinite number of topics and just say this is overrated, that is overrated, and now you got what I call it an intrinsic value debate, or as opposed to a comparative value. You're not comparing the Oscars to anything. You're just looking at the intrinsic value and whether or not that intrinsic value is set higher than it ought to be.
Yeah.
And so I think Joaquin Phoenix has his 1AC out there. So
yeah. And I don't know that there's a great response to that. Like, yep, that is why they're all there. They're there to sell advertising. Like the Oscars wouldn't happen if it was done silently and alone. Like, so,
but I mean, like on the other hand, like my story is kind of the opposite. Like we're not doing it because we think that we're diehard Oscars fan. It's like it's a vehicle for people to spend time together and learn about things, and so like some of these, like take a look at some of the movies that are out there. All right. I mean, just starting with Barbie has a really sophisticated critique on the patriarchy. It like kind of ruffles people's feathers, but it exposes them to things like that, even though in the way that it's packaged. Oppenheimer is an incredibly important part of history. What was it? We're just doing best
Killing
picture,
right? Moon, as you just mentioned.
Yeah. Past Lives is nice. What else was I saying? Oh, The Killers of Flower Moon, also like in the same vein as Oppenheimer. Incredibly important historical information that people need to see, right? Like people need to know these stories. And so the Oscars elevating them to that level, it's like, we get wrapped up in the glitz and the glimmer of the award ceremony, but the movies that they're putting out are valuable movies. So there should be some sort of, I think like having an award ceremony is fine. Maybe you could say that one of the other ones is, I don't know. It's like maybe there's too many award ceremonies, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the Oscars are overrated.
That's fair. There's a good argument to be made for everyone is always going to have their own opinions, but as soon as you get together like a collected body to give guidance, that helps. I think someone was talking about this in the world of like sommeliers, so like wine aficionados, that you can go taste 3 different wines and decide personally which ones you like. But people that want to have a little bit of direction of like, oh, well, people that really know wine say that this is a good wine, and it's a useful compass, just a guide through all of the million options. Because God, there are so many movies, especially with streaming nowadays. There are thousands of movies that we could watch at any given point in time. So the Oscars are a helpful guide through that, just to be able to say, well, a large body of people that are involved in this industry say that these are good for these reasons. So it's kind of a helpful, tool. Do I agree that like that makes it the best? No, I don't. But I think it's still a helpful, vehicle to say, check these things out. And if it is about elevating that movie, then I think maybe broaden a little bit of the opportunity. So it's not the same names every year, but like what needs to be seen. I think the mission of the Oscars ought to be a little bit more clearly defined if that's really what they want to do.
So like another way of doing the Oscars overrated one is just to compare it with one of the other awards and just say that one's better than this one. Like SAG-AFTRA is they get it better than the Oscars or something like that. That's an interesting way to go about it. I don't like it just came off the top of my head, so I don't know if I'm prepared to really. Luckily, we're out of time. So,
but leaving on that interesting question that I had,
yeah, that's just another way of taking. Like, you can look up the difference in nominations, especially over time. Like, if you're able to do that, like deep dive on the data, if you look over time, that would be a different way of going about it. You're like, it's overrated because the Golden Globes are better. They have better categories and they get it right. I mean, at least the Golden Globes, they have like comedy and drama.
Yeah, and drama separated.
Yeah. So like that one, even if that's all you know, I think you could say that's like they just have a better system of categories.
Yeah,
it could be great. All right. Well, I think that does it for us on the Oscars. There's a lot of potential debate topics to come out and just potential conversations you could have with people that are had differing opinions, friendly competition of ideas, stuff like that. We are DebateSensei. Thank you, Tim. I am Jared, and we will see you again in the future.
Thank you, the Academy and my family.